them. Would you say a round of applause to Musica? Thank you, Musica. May I tell you a little story about one of our business leaders who was instrumental in putting together the Greater Houston Partnership. He was a banker. His name, Ben Love. And Ben Love describes in his autobiography that shortly after he had joined Texas Commerce, there was a company called Stanford Research that began working with the Chamber to talk about bringing a major corporate headquarters into the Houston area. And being an oil and gas center, and this company being an energy company, everybody felt like Houston was a natural and had a strategic advantage over other regions. Stanford Research came back and said that this company had identified a deficiency in our community, and that deficiency was culture. And Stanford Research said, and again, this is back in the late 60s, early 70s, Houston did not have a ballet. The symphony at that time was fair, but Dallas's was rated as being better. Our opera was weak and running in the red, and unlike the symphony, did not have a Miss Ima Hogg or a General Maurice Hirsch or a Gus Wortham to write a check at the end of the year to make up the deficits. And Stanford Research study went on to say that the client liked everything else about Houston, but felt like this cultural thing was a challenge to us. And Ben Love had just come in as chairman of the Chamber of Commerce's Cultural Affairs Committee, and he determined it was his responsibility to step up and become involved in finding a way for the business community to become more active in growing the cultural arts of the Houston area. And for his own personal responsibility, he chose to serve on the board of the Houston Grand Opera. And of course, what rose very quickly through those ranks to where he became chair of the Houston Grand Opera. And 2 years later, found himself in a position where, as chair of the Houston Opera, he was very pleased to find out that this company was coming to Houston after all. Do you care to guess who that company was that had some questions about the strength of our cultural arts? Well, it was none other than Shell Oil, and they chose us over Dallas. So we get it in the business community, and today we're very pleased that you're with us and we're all together as a cultural arts business community to spotlight the film industry and the contribution that it makes to our economic growth and to our regional prosperity. Do you realize that over the last 10 calendar years that Houston has hosted more than 1,400 film and video projects with expenditures exceeding $209 million? And however, we also know that the competition for these jobs and for these dollars has increased dramatically. Our neighbors next door, Louisiana, New Mexico, and Georgia, are offering significant film incentive programs to lure away production dollars. In response to this, you might have heard that last legislative session, Governor Perry and the legislature stepped forward to pass an incentive program, and that's what our special guest today is here to visit with us about and what it means to our region. This could actually mean an increase of more than 11% in our incentive grant packages. So that's why we're pleased that Bob Hudgens, the director of the Texas Film Commission, is here to tell us more about this program and how it's going to benefit our region and all of us in the cultural arts community. So thank you, each and every one, for being here. Lunch is served, and we'll begin a little bit later on with formal introductions. Please enjoy your meal and get to know your neighbor. God bless you.
And that's what really a wonderful thing about this lunch are people in the various arts institutions and business institutions around the city being able to gather and talk about art in the city of Houston. I'm Joe Dilg, and on behalf of my co-chairs, Francie Crane and John Guess, I wanted to welcome you to the Business Committee, the Business of Arts Luncheon. This is, I believe, the third annual luncheon that we've been having, and it's really been wonderful for the city of Houston. I'm here in sort of a dual capacity of member of the board of directors of the Greater Houston Partnership and of the Houston Arts Alliance, the two organizations sponsoring the luncheon today. The Greater Houston Partnership's board of directors lead entities which account for 1 in 10 of the 2.5 million jobs in the Greater Houston metropolitan area. The board includes heads of Fortune 500 companies, executives from local, national, and international businesses, heads of religious, educational, and healthcare institutions, and they let the people running a few professional services organizations work with them as well. We represent businesses in the region from the largest to the smallest, and each of the board members gives mightily of their time and effort to provide valuable leadership for the partnership's mission to secure economic prosperity for all of those in our region. Would those board members of the Greater Houston Partnership who are here with us today please rise and let us thank you for your time and effort? The Houston Arts Alliance also supports the economic vitality of our region through its active support of arts organizations, both large and small, in our community. Like the Greater Houston Partnership, the Houston Arts Alliance greatly benefits from the time, guidance, and support it receives from the voluntary members of the board of directors, which represent many facets of our community. I'd like to ask the board members of the Houston Arts Alliance who are here with us today to stand and be recognized. Thank you very much for all you do for our community as well. Each year, the Greater Houston Partnership brings you events and meetings with some of the best and brightest thought leaders of the world. None of those events would be possible without our members stepping up and investing in our operations and in the events that we can bring to you. There are materials outside as you leave about the other programs that the Greater Houston Partnership will be sponsoring during the coming months. But as this region navigates its way through some difficult economic times, and must I say, a little bit better than a lot of other regions in the country, your continued support is valued even that much more. Let me take a minute to recognize the organizations who have generously sponsored today's Business of the Arts Luncheon. At the director level sponsors, the Houston Arts Alliance and my partners at Vincent & Elkins. At our screenwriter sponsors are the Alley Theater, Kathy Lamberley, Gilbane Building Company, Houston Ballet Foundation, Houston Museum District Association, the Houston Zoo, the Menil Collection, Miller Outdoor Theater, MKG Arts Marketing, Museum of Fine Arts of Houston, and the Society for Performing Arts. Help me thank all those organizations for their support. We pride ourselves as being a region with a pro-business environment that's really among the best, if not the best, in the country. As a matter of fact, FDI Magazine, a leading publication on foreign direct investment, recently cited Houston as the top major city for business readiness in the world. The business and arts communities have certainly played a major role in creating this environment, but we could not have done it without the support and leadership of all of our government leaders at all levels. I'd like to acknowledge Sue Lovell and Melissa Noriega, members of our City Council who are here with us today. And thank you very much for your support of everything that happens in the city. And if you see other elected officials during the coming weeks, thank them as well for their support of both the business community and the arts community in our city. And if I missed anybody, please let me know. Houston region is truly an international destination and a leader in the global marketplace. We have 91 consulates in the city of Houston. That ranks us third in the nation and first in the Southwest. They're supported by a multitude of foreign trade and commercial offices, chambers of commerce, and trade associations. These consulates are invaluable to our business community. They foster international trade, improve our understanding of global opportunities, and bring richness of the world's culture to our region's doorstep. We're privileged to be joined today by a couple of members of our consular corps. The Honorable Margarita Young-Zellweger, the Honorary Consul General of Switzerland, is with us. And we also have the Honorable Marlene McClinton, Honorary Consul General of Guadalajara. Thank you very much for being with us today and for all you do for our community. Would you please join me now in welcoming my fellow Houston Arts Alliance Board Chair, Bobinay Welsh. Where is Bobinay? Was right here a second ago. Okay, you hit on me. I thought you'd left. Bobinay does an incredible job for the city of Houston as her work with the Houston Arts Alliance and many other organizations around, but thank you very much for everything you do, Bobinay.
Thanks so much, Joe, and thank you to you for all you do for not only the Houston Arts Alliance and the Greater Houston Partnership, but the City of Houston. The first thing I'd like to do is congratulate and thank our fabulous co-chairs for today's event, Francie Crane, Joe Dilg, and John Gass. Could I ask the three of you please to stand? Thank you so much. It's a great event, and we really appreciate your help and guidance in producing this event today. Well, as many of you know, for the last 3 years, the Greater Houston Partnership has paired with the Houston Arts Alliance to present the annual Business of the Arts Luncheon. Perhaps for some, the pairing seems like strange bedfellows and the term Business of the Arts a non sequitur. But as we are learning, we live in a post-industrial world, and for the first time in our history, the economic competitiveness of our city depends upon the development of human creative capabilities. The author, Richard Florida, in his book, Who's Your City?, notes that advanced economies today are shedding manufacturing jobs and generating jobs in two other sectors, low-paid service work and what he calls the creative sector. And the number of jobs held by the creative class is the fastest growing segment of our economy. This sector includes jobs in science and technology, arts and design, and entertainment and media, in addition to some of the more traditional professions of law, finance, management, healthcare, and education. At the national level, the creative sector of this country's economy has grown from 5% of all employment in the early 1900s to more than 30% in 2005. This sector generates $2.1 trillion in income, half of all wages and salaries, and almost 70% of all discretionary income. Mr. Florida says that by 2014, according to his studies, the U.S. will add another 10 million creative sector jobs in the nation's economy. At the local level, Stephen Kleinberg, the well-known Houston sociologist from Rice University, said recently that Houston's prospects for economic competitiveness will now increasingly depend upon the city's ability to attract and retain the nation's most skilled and creative knowledge workers and high-tech companies. To do this, Houston will need, in part, to increase its excellence of venues for arts and culture and the overall physical attractiveness and aesthetic appeal of the city. Well, it's clear that today art means business and business means art. The two go hand in hand. And it was with this understanding that the Greater Houston Partnership and HAA joined forces 3 years ago to jointly develop and promote the creative sector of Houston's economy. It is today with great pride and pleasure that we jointly announce the first annual Business of the Arts Award. This award will be presented annually to a distinguished citizen who has been instrumental in fostering both business and the arts in our community. There is not a more deserving recipient for the award, the first of its kind, than Mayor Bill White, who throughout the multiple terms as mayor has been a tireless supporter of both business and the arts in this city. Mayor White is one who truly understands the importance of arts to business and business to arts. Unfortunately, Mayor White could not be with us today, but Dan Bello, the chairman of the board of the Greater Houston Partnership, and I had the pleasure and honor of presenting Mayor White with this award on September the 29th in the Proclamation Room at City Hall. What follows is a film presentation of that award. Mayor White, I, as chairman of the board of the Houston Arts Alliance, and together with our colleagues at the Greater Houston Partnership, are delighted and pleased to honor you today with the inaugural Business of the Arts Award. It is through your vision and leadership that 3 arts organizations were combined several years ago to create the Houston Arts Alliance, which is the agency that is now charged with advancing the arts on behalf of the city. As a result, our city's civic art program has matured, putting important new artworks in place at our airports, our parks, and other civic locations, including libraries and community centers, thereby making art accessible to all in our city. Also under your leadership, the citizens of Houston and visitors alike now enjoy beautiful spaces like Discovery Green and Herman Park, which host a diverse array of arts activities. You recognize the tremendous impact that the arts has as a business on our city, and each year 14,000 jobs are created and $625 million flow directly into our economy as a result of arts activities in the city of Houston. You have created a legacy of imagination and creativity that will continue for years to come in our city. We thank you.
Thank you, Fabian.
And Mayor, on behalf of the Greater Houston Partnership and the Houston Arts Alliance, we want to present you with this nice award, which says, for his steadfast support of the arts in the city of Houston. And you know, at the Greater Houston Partnership, we love economic development and we love quality of life. You've been a huge supporter of both, and they're tied together, because without great quality of life, without the arts in our community, without your strong support of the arts, we wouldn't be the great city we are today to live, work, and play. So you're well deserving of this award, and we appreciate all that you've done for our great city. Congratulations.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Fabian. This is fantastic, and I want to say to each of you, look, thank goodness that the Greater Houston Partnership and the business community recognizes that arts are important for economic development in our community. It's part of who we are. And Fabian, congratulations. The Houston Arts Alliance has really brought together some of the best talents in the community, taking politics and patronage out of the arts process so that we can put up high quality art that will endure within our city. I hope that every citizen of this community rallies around to support art funding. There's always some other claim to a limited resources we have as a community, but the arts are important if we're going to be remembered as a great city forever, and if we're going to attract people from all over the world who want to go to Houston to work, to raise their kids, and just to have fun. Thank you all.
Good afternoon. I'm Jonathan Gless. I'm the CEO of the Houston Arts Alliance. That was quite an award. I was privileged to be there with the chairs of our two boards when the award was given out. And our mayor has done so much in the last few years on behalf of the arts in our city. It was a great pleasure to be part of that. Before we move along, we need to acknowledge Councilmember Jolanda Jones, who recently joined us. Welcome, Councilmember. And I'd like to thank our arts colleagues from the many institutions and organizations who are here today celebrating this event. And specifically, I would also like to recognize and thank Rick Ferguson, the ED of the Houston Film Commission, for all of his work for many years, bringing and expanding film here in this city. Rick, why don't you stand up? I'd also like to make one more acknowledgement. Minette Basil, Susan Young, Jill Jewett, and Emily Todd are 4 women who have been working for a number of years inside City Hall and in the trenches of the arts organizations on behalf of us all. And I think they're all here. Would the 4 of you please stand up? Thank you. So we all know the arts are big business in Houston, pumping $626 million into our economy each year. If you look at the major cities in Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio, and Austin, they collectively generate more than $1 billion a year in economic activity. Huge, huge business in Texas. We also know that film industry is big all over the country. Rested state economies such as Michigan and evolving state economies such as New Mexico use film as a major new economic generator. North American cities have reinvented themselves and, very importantly, their images through film. Consider Vancouver, Toronto, and in our part of the world, Shreveport, Louisiana. Before we're going to go any farther, though, I do want to reintroduce Patricia Martin. You might remember that Patricia was our speaker this time last year and was with us speaking about the cultural consumer and her RenGen project. Stand up one more second, Patricia. Patricia's here this year to launch her creative economy study here in Houston. She was so taken by Houston and the rigor and vigor in our creative sector here that she decided to come back and work very closely with the GHP, HAA, and University of Houston on this next project. And we're very excited to get going on that. So today at the luncheon, we decided to focus on film. And we did so for 2 reasons. One is because we all know there was recent legislation passed in Austin that has increased incentives for further film in the state. But also because a thriving local film industry must have a thriving local arts industry to support it. Any major American city that has a vital, viable, growing film sector, film industry, has the same arts sector. The decision to select a film location is based on a number of variables, but it boils down to 3: the cost, the availability of sites, and the support services or crews. Now, we know that crew means camera workers and other production support, but it also means the talent. Actors, dancers, singers, musicians, directors, conductors, creative staff, stylists, set designers, craftspeople, lighting, costuming, voice coaches, composers, and more. That sounds exactly like backstage at the opera to me. And film means jobs. A large local film industry means more jobs for artists, more opportunities, and oftentimes better pay. So that means we can keep our creatives here and we can attract more to Houston. New York, Chicago, and now Los Angeles have some of the most prominent orchestral talent in the country, but that is not simply due to their primary symphony. It is because they have film that they can also work in. They make their money in the film, and then they have the opportunity to focus on emerging classical music, 20th century music, etc. They can really focus on their art as well as making a good living in film. The expanded film industry in Louisiana now means that members of the Louisiana Philharmonic have worked on Hollywood film scores during their off months. That would not have happened a few years ago. We are already a great film city. We have schools such as HSPVA and the Ensemble, as well as U of H, that provide fertile training grounds for our young actors. We have a vibrant culture of viewing and studying the art of film. We have the Palestinian, the Asian, the Jewish, the Hispanic, Indian, gay and lesbian, international film festivals. Plus Arroyo Picture Show, Diverse Works, the film programs at MFA, Rice, U of H, and I'm sure there's others I haven't mentioned. And we have a new addition. The Cinema Arts Festival is set this year for November 11th to November 15th. Now, this is a wholly unique festival within the United States. There is probably, I'm not even going to guess how many film festivals there are across the United States. But what is wholly unique about this festival, it is that it's based in the theatrical, literary, and film arts and rooted specifically in the contemporary art scene here in Houston. Now, I have a list of some of the programming, which I can't go through all of it, but I will tell you that Tommy Lee Jones and Tilda Swinton will be here. And you might have read about something called H-Box. It's a roaming screening hall presenting major new video commissions by 8 international artists. It's sponsored by Hermes. The unique structure launched at the Beaubourg Museum in Paris, traveled to the Tate Museum in London, and will be installed during the festival here in Houston, in between engagements in Los Angeles and New York. So this new festival is really bringing us to a new level in our film festivals here in the city, and we're very excited about that. Now, I have the great opportunity to introduce our keynote speaker. Bob Hutchins has been the director of the Texas Film Commission since 2005, and prior to that, he was deputy director of the Illinois Film Commission for 8 years. He has worked in films such as Road to Perdition, Spider-Man 2, Batman Begins, Field of Dreams, Michael, and There Will Be Blood. Bob was instrumental in the passage of House Bill 1634, which substantially increased Texas film incentives. Please welcome Bob Hutchins.
Wow, thank you, Jonathan. Really appreciate it. I have to say, I'm really thrilled to be here. This is an amazing group of people, and I've met so many wonderful folks, and I have to do a kind of a shout out to the future. The kids from Ball High School in Galveston working on a dock. This is our future. This is the opportunities that Houston is creating for itself. So thank you. It started out, it sounds like, and I'm going to do a real quick thumbnail on this, that it started out as a class project that led to an after-school project that led to a collaboration of, I hope to say, a really nice piece of work that who knows where these young people are going to end up in their careers. But that's a real important point of why we're all here today. Our industry really is about business. I know that it's the creative component. That's what drove me to this industry. I was very fortunate to have a career in the film industry. I wish I could say I took responsibility for films like Road to Perdition. I was working on those in my capacity at the Illinois Film Office, but I was fortunate enough to have a creative, integral play in films like Groundhog Day and Rudy and Field of Dreams, which was a very special film to get to work on. But it led me to realize that in my pursuit of working on film and how you don't realize what you're doing until you're kind of doing it and stand back a ways, that you realize the impact that film can have on a community or on a region or on a state, especially even a state the size of Texas. It's quite amazing that we as the state of Texas have produced amazing, amazing works of art. And I'm very proud of those, and I'm very proud to be in the position I am, that I was given by Governor Perry and his support throughout the endeavor of trying to make Texas competitive for film again. So I would like to kind of get into that, if I may, because at the crux of all of this, if we had not passed incentives in this session, we would be having a very different conversation. I doubt y'all would have asked me to come stand before you today, because we, quite honestly, were getting killed by little states like New Mexico and our neighbors to the east, Louisiana, where Shreveport alone was doing something in the realm of over $500 million a year in production. And if you can imagine, the numbers that are equated to film production are quite amazing, and all the different people that they employ. I was a worker bee. I was a locations guy. I was given the job by the studios to go out and find the places. So it led me on some really great adventures. And I have to say, one of the best adventures I ever was given was for a film called Michael. It was a John Travolta movie that we were supposed to be shooting in Iowa, and it was partly in Iowa and partly in Chicago. Well, when we started that movie out in the creative process, there was this guy named Gerard Depardieu who was the angel. Michael is a story about Michael the Archangel, and John Travolta played the Archangel. But originally, we were shooting the film in Iowa, and Gerard Depardieu was going to be the actor. And I think that would have turned out to be a very different film. But we ended up making the movie we made. And the studio decided that Mr. Travolta had been very successful. A little film called Pulp Fiction had come out recently, and so there was a lot of desire to bring him on the cast, which they were able to do. But when they did that, it pushed our production schedule. And so instead of being in Iowa in September, October, as we had originally planned, we needed to be able to be somewhere looked like Iowa in February. Well, yeah, you guys get it, don't you? That February in Iowa is not a piece of cake. And so the director, Nora Ephron, was like, go find me Iowa, somewhere warm. Well, I have to say, it was a remarkable experience. For 6 weeks, I just drove back roads. And I started in Tennessee and went down to Florida and worked my way across to the part of the country I actually know a little better than the East Coast. I'm very fortunate to be a native of Texas, and I actually got to live, yeah. But no, I was given the opportunity to come and scout in Texas. In a very fundamental way, I got support from the Texas Film Commission at the time that made that movie happen. And so I have an incredibly strong, love for the Texas Film Commission, and I can't begin to tell you how honored I've been given this opportunity. But they supported the visual components, the creative elements of what our film needed to be, and they got it. And to be able to have a conversation as a filmmaker and be able to convey to someone working in state government that understands what filmmakers need was really quite wonderful. And literally in a very short period, we were able to find our locations, and we made the decision to bring that film to Texas. And it worked out really well. It was very pleasant to work on that film. And it actually led to the path that I'm on today to stand before you. Because without that film, I don't think I would have ever created a relationship with the Texas Film Commission, and my path probably would have gone some other different route. And I can't begin to tell you how grateful I am I'm here, and I'm in the state of Texas and back home. But the understanding of if they had not fulfilled that one component, that finding the real needs of what filmmakers actually want, we wouldn't have come. And so that's the role of our office, is to provide what filmmakers want. Now, in the perfect world, Rick Ferguson, who obviously receives a great deal of adulation in Houston, extremely well deserving. He's the best film commissioner in the state of Texas, and myself notwithstanding. You were very lucky to have him. But when we started out, Rick and I were younger men, and it was all about finding that location, of actually physically going and looking for these places. And I really always compared it to a scavenger hunt. You get a script, and here are the locations, and you have to find out what the locations are, but also what the action of the scenes are. So you have to make these things match up. It all has to work. Well, the things have changed. That going and finding locations and finding things that work visually for a film have kind of fallen to the wayside. And today, what is really driving the determination for where a production goes or doesn't go is on financial incentives. So I have become the guy who works on film incentives, and I was fortunate enough in Illinois to work on a program there, and we were able to get it passed, and it had a very good impact. We were able to get films like Batman Begins, and after I left, The Dark Knight and the Ocean's 11, 12, 13. Those are the kinds of projects that are really looking at all their financial components when they're making their determination of where to go. So now our world is really driven by incentives. So I'm happy to say that we took an interesting path in Texas, and one I think is going to pay incredible dividends down the road, because we're not the hot, young incentive on the block. Michigan does that. Iowa did that for a couple of weeks until their governor shut it down for improprieties. Our friends in Georgia have a really good program right now, but a lot of the value of their program goes to people that aren't residents of their states, that they are paying big dividends to these productions for bringing people into their states to make their movies. Well, guess what? We have a really different little circumstance here. We have talent. We've got an abundance of talent. In fact, that's our biggest strength. Besides the diversity of our locations, which you're all probably very familiar with, you can shoot Texas for a lot of different things. But you need the people to make the movie. And that is our really the kind of the component that makes Texas the most competitive, because we have crew. We have the people that will go scout locations, that can do amazing things in the art department. Then the talent side, we have great actors, and we have a lot of actors. We don't just have movie stars, but we have all the people that can fill in all the scenes, all the bread and butter roles that go into films. Texas is just able and ready to deliver. Now, but if you don't have an incentive that gives money back to producers, they're not even going to come look. So we had to work on getting an incentive passed, a competitive program. But our program is specifically, shamelessly Texas-centric. You have to come to Texas, you've got to spend money paying Texans, and you have to, spend your money with Texas equipment vendors and in companies doing that kind of support work. That's where you realize the value. But the good news is we have all those constituent parts, so we can deliver the goods. We feel that our program is going to be sustainable long term. The problem with the Michigan programs, Michigan's giving 42% back to productions that go to Michigan. Now, we all kind of feel sorry for Michigan. I've actually worked there on a couple of opportunities in my life. It was a very nice experience, a beautiful state. Tough winters, but it's really hard to go there and hire crew. There's no experience there. Texas has been in the film business since the 19-teens. We've been around a long time. Wings, the first film to win an Oscar, was shot in San Antonio. I mean, we have this very, very long tradition, and it's never gone away. It's not always been major motion pictures that has supported our industry, but it is a really sustainable industry in Texas. Now, with sustainability comes change. You have to move into the segments that are the most, technology is driving all industries, but the film industry is being very, very driven by technology. Well, I hope you understand, movies, in my nomenclature of being the Texas Film Commissioner, we don't worry just about film anymore, because it's very nice to have movies come. They get all the press. People like movie stars. They want to be able to have a movie shot in their home or in their community, and that's a really great thing. The economic impact is superb. But I hope you realize there's other components of our industry that you're actually kind of bump into in day-to-day life more often than major motion pictures. Commercials are really the backbone of the industry in Texas. More people, more businesses are supported by commercial production, making these spots from everything from HEB to, these little companies like Shell and Exxon and those guys. We have just a little bit of capacity in Texas. And we really hope that we're able to keep more and more of that commercial production activity in Texas, because I have to say this, that's where a lot of the real money in production and production's jobs that can be created, and the potential for growth is phenomenal for Texas if we were able to garner more of just our Texas companies' business here in the state. It would be phenomenal. Another component of our industry that you may not see a direct relationship to is the video game industry. That is, I'm sure you're all very familiar with it. Those with kids know that kids love video games. Well, it's an enormous growth industry. It's, unlike film, has kind of plateaued. The studios are actually making less movies than they used to. But the video game industry is growing like gangbusters. Overall, it's actually a bigger industry today than the film industry is. Well, I'd like to tell you that Texas is out in front of this one. We are ahead of the curve in trying to get Texas game companies to grow like crazy, and to get a few of those companies that are so well entrenched in Los Angeles to move to Texas because of our business environment and our wonderful creative culture. People want to be here. And guess what? The game companies create amazing jobs. The average starting salary for a video game is $85,000. I mean, goodness gracious, if I'd only known, I would have really focused on math and science a lot more than I did. Oh, gracious me. It's really an amazing thing how, and so to connect the dots real quickly, there's video games are created by computer, animation and all those things. Well, animation and video games, those workers can bounce back and forth between projects. And it's really quite amazing at how much of that industry is already here. Texas is the third largest video game developer in the country, behind California and Washington State. But we're growing like crazy. We actually have companies like Sony Online, Disney, and these other companies you might have heard of, Entertainment Arts, Midway. They all have presence in Texas, and we're hoping to keep increasing that, because what they need are skilled workers. They are, again, coming back to that same strength of Texas, it comes back to our workforce. The fact that we have programs in our institutions that are training these people, and we have these great kids that in the past were getting really good educations, but then we're immediately going to California. Our goal is to keep as many of those people in the state as possible. So in the grand scheme of what our incentive does, we actually include not just film and television, which is the traditional kind of component of our industry, but we also incentivize commercials and video games. And I have to say, the most significant part in the applications that have come in to date in our current program have been for commercials in the city of Houston. That really is where people are already here, they're on the ground, and they want to expand and grow their businesses. So while all of these things kind of may seem separate, they are all working together to create that, that creative economy. Because I completely agree that for our industry to grow, it is absolutely essential that the creative economy be present and strong and very, very, vital to the local economy of a community. And Houston does that very well. I mean, you guys are evidence that the creative economy and the business climate in Houston know how to work together. And I'm very encouraged that in the future we're going to be able to have, wonderful things that are going to get front page news, which that's the movies. Movies always get front page because that's the movie star component. I mean, you don't have any of those 6:30 TV shows that are covering, Access video games. No, it's Access Hollywood. People in our culture love movies. I grew up going to movies and just, loving film. And I'm very proud that I got the opportunity to work in this industry. But you can't look at our industry pretty much like you look at any other industry. It's not one segment. It's one component of a much larger group. And I'm very happy to say we're laying the groundwork for really wonderful things to happen here. Our incentive is just underway. The governor signed the bill April 23rd. We were the first piece of legislation out, which was very exciting. And we also received the funding we had requested. Our program got $60 million for the next 2 years. And there has been a really increased bit of interest in projects coming to us. We hope that very soon there's going to be some very large Hollywood projects coming to the Houston area so we can all talk about how wonderful it is to have movie stars in our restaurants, because that's a good thing. It does build, wonderful, community that you can't, you might mock it. I know I do on a regular basis, but, I have a real close view. But, it's something that it really is important that a community feel good about itself, that the arts play that important component of how a community feels and how it views itself. So it's very exciting that the city of Houston and you as a group are looking to this future with us in trying to make Texas a very competitive place. So kind of to wrap up on my points here, and I know I'm probably kind of scattered in my logic here, but you have amazing assets. I had a really cool moment this morning. I was standing in my hotel, in this hotel, pardon me, and you guys got me a really nice room. Thank you very much. But I was looking out my window, and all of a sudden, I was looking down at the park, and I watched a man walk out of the convention center and walk through the park. And from my vantage, it was, if anybody recalls the film North by Northwest by Hitchcock, where there's the United Nations building where Cary Grant has just been accused of killing someone, and he exits the United Nations building. I had that exact scene in my brain as I watched someone walk across that beautiful park. And I was just like, oh my gosh, and for me, it's very exciting because I have lived in Houston in my past life in the early 80s, and that park didn't exist. And this whole environment that y'all have created is spectacularly beautiful. It is so film-worthy, I can't begin to tell you. It was very exciting for me this morning to actually feel a scene as I'm watching it. I can't wait to kind of come back to this Hilton, shoot it from the rooftop so I can get a better angle, of course. But it's here. Guys, visually, all the components are really here. So you should be very proud of all your hard work. This is not something that happens overnight. The programs that happen overnight are going to disappear overnight. I really am very happy to tell you that in 5-10 years, our industry is going to be growing, and you guys are going to be an integral part of it in the state of Texas. So thank you for letting me be here and talk to you all today, and I really look forward to the future with you. Thank you very, very much.
We're so pleased that Bob Hudgens could bring us his presentation. He says he has he could take a couple of questions if there are one or two from the floor, real quick. Quick questions for Bob.
The question was, Sean Penn was seen in Houston recently, and yes, we were involved. That was a film called Tree of Life, and actually, I meant to speak about this film. Thank you for asking. I prompted her. No, I really didn't. But it was a film called Tree of Life that Terrence Malick directed. Terrence Malick did things like Badlands, Thin Red Line, a really wonderful director who's a Texan, and he lives in Texas now by choice. And it was primarily shot in a town called Smithville. And Smithville is one of those amazing success stories. They've had two major films shoot there in their history, Hope Floats and Tree of Life. And it was with Brad Pitt, and you would not have believed how much press attention there was to the Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, because she was very pregnant at the time, and there was all this comments about, her, giving birth in the Smithville Hospital. And I'm very happy to say that Smithville is one of our most film-friendly communities out there. They totally get it. They go out and work very hard to get films to come there. But I'm happy to say Sean came and they needed some very urban environments, so they came to Houston and were able to shoot those, and it was fairly painless. They came in and shot over weekends, and they were with the good help of the Houston Film Commission. But yes, Tree of Life is still in post-production, even though they shot last year. And we're hoping that it's actually going to be an early spring release. So look for that in the theaters, Tree of Life. So thank you. Well, was there an immediate reaction to the incentive program? Immediately, there was a reaction. When we did the bill signing, Robert Rodriguez, who is an Austin-based filmmaker, announced that a project that he was being forced by the studio to take to Louisiana, we would now be able to keep in Texas. So I'm very happy to say they've just completed photography on that film. It's called Machete. And it's not everybody's cup of tea, but business is business. And so I have to say, yes, there was a lot of very immediate interest, but Machete is going to be our test case. This is the film where we're going to be showing performance. When we write a very large check to Machete for coming and doing their work, that is going to speak volumes. There are so many incentive programs. I mean, 43 states have incentives in the country now. So there's this wait-and-see attitude by, basically the Los Angeles production community to see, if these programs really work. Well, we're feeling like this is going to be our first big thing out of the chute that will get quite a bit of response. And when we give them their nice size check, that I think it's going to draw a lot of attention. So there is an enormous amount of interest, and we hope it's going to continue to build. But, there is a little bit of a wait-and-see attitude, but there is a significant interest. The phone has been ringing like crazy.
Last question, Jagdeep.
We would love to make it happen, and I apologize for not mentioning the incredible opportunities. The diversity of Houston give you so many opportunities that, quite frankly, most places don't have. And to have a population to actually be able to do a full-level Bollywood film, Houston can do it. We can actually pull that off here. We'd be able to, get the talent here and be able to do the production not maybe as cheaply as you might be able to in India, but we're hoping that they're going to come and find some very good production value in shooting here. And I've actually read one script recently that is a love story between an Indian gentleman and an American woman who actually meet in Houston. And so I'm hoping that project comes to fruition. And if you're interested and have investors, I know they'd love to talk to you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks again. One quick thank you to Anise Parker, our city controller, who joined us. Anise, would you stand and let us say thanks to you? And we appreciate so much, Bob Hudgens, what you're doing as director of the Texas Film Commission, and Joel Gluss and our entire arts community. And Fabene, thank you so much for your leadership. So let's go and make it a great community. And remember, when Bob shows up with his film crew, we want to be first in line to be the extras for a business meeting. Can we do that, Bob? God bless you. Go and make it a great city.